Have you ever wondered if reality is actually real? What if everything you experience, the chair you're sitting in, the people you interact with, even the thoughts in your head, are all just pieces of a simulation that's rendering in real time as you move through it? And I know, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, but hang with me for a moment. A few years ago, I found myself going down some pretty intense and dark rabbit holes, and I was pregnant with my first child. But the world just seemed increasingly chaotic, and I started questioning everything. And what started as curiosity about conventional conspiracy theories quickly evolved into something so much deeper, a fundamental questioning of reality itself. And the thing is, once you start asking these questions, it's kind of hard to stop. If quantum physics has proven that particles don't actually exist until they're observed, what does that tell us about the nature of our reality? If our attention and focus literally shape what manifests in our lives, how much power do we actually have to create our experience? So I've spent the last couple years experimenting with these ideas in my own life, and not just thinking about them intellectually, but actually testing them out. And what I've found has been pretty mind-blowing. When I stopped pouring my energy into distant world events that I can't control and started directing it toward what actually matters to me, my entire experience changed. When I started questioning narratives instead of automatically accepting them, I found freedom that I did not even know existed. Think for a second about how social media algorithms actually work. You know how when you spend 10 minutes scrolling through videos about the latest political drama, suddenly your entire Instagram feed is nothing but political content? Or how when you obsessively check your ex's profile, Instagram just keeps showing you their posts at the top of your feed? The algorithm is literally designed to give you more of whatever you pay attention to, even if you hate it. And your life works in a weirdly similar way. Whatever you focus on, whatever you pour your energy into, that's what grows in your experience. So if you're constantly obsessing over drama, guess what shows up in your life? More drama. If you fixate on everything going wrong in the world, your brain starts filtering reality to confirm that belief. It's like your consciousness has its own algorithm that's learning from where you place your attention. And then it just serves you more of that stuff on repeat. And I used to think that this is just how the brain works. The reticular activating system, making you notice red cars everywhere after you decide to buy one. But lately, I've been wondering if it goes much deeper than that. What if this isn't just about perception, but about the actual fabric of consciousness? What if our attention is literally creating the reality we experience, moment by moment? What if we're all just rendering our own versions of reality as we move through life, like a video game that only builds the scenes that we're looking at right now? Well, the good news is, once you realize this, you can start intentionally redirecting your focus, just like you'd curate your social feeds. So this exploration isn't about denying that real things happen in the world, but it's about taking back ownership of your attention, your energy, and ultimately your life, and possibly expanding your view of reality. So I understand if you're skeptical, because I was too. And you don't have to believe any of this to get value from today's conversation. Think of it as a thought experiment. What if you could question everything you've been told without fear of judgment? What possibilities might open up? So I've been following today's guest for quite some time, and I'm just fascinated by her unique perspective on reality and consciousness. And I've gone down several of the rabbit holes that she has created on the internet for me, and I recommend you do the same. But her ideas about rendering as we go resonated really deeply with experiences that I had and questions that I was asking at the time that I came across it. So I knew I needed to bring this conversation to you. Today, our guest is known as Human Vibration on Instagram. She's a researcher and podcaster who explores the nature of reality, manufactured narratives, and personal sovereignty. She co-hosts Realize Radio and has developed a passionate community of people questioning conventional reality frameworks. So in this episode, you're going to discover how questioning mainstream narratives can free up massive amounts of mental and emotional energy, the concept of rendering reality as we go and what it means for how we live our lives, and practical ways to reclaim your attention from the constant pulls of outrage and distraction. And mind you, we get pretty out there in this episode. So if you're the kind of person that gets all tense and judgy from that, just skip this episode. We've got like 500 others for you to explore. But if you're the kind who loves to question and see where it leads you, this is the perfect episode for you. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. You guys, workplace stress is killing us. 61% of people are dealing with stress levels that are way beyond normal. So if you're feeling it, you are not alone. I used to think I could just push through everything, work harder, sleep less, pretend I had it all figured out. But that approach nearly broke me. I am all about following your joy. If that voice in your head is telling you to make a change, listen to it. Maybe you are ready to quit your job. Maybe you do need to flip your whole life upside down. But either way, you need support and tools to navigate it well. And that's where therapy comes in. Modern therapy teaches you how to set boundaries without feeling guilty, how to manage anxiety before it spirals, how to make big moves from a place of strength instead of desperation. And BetterHelp has over 30,000 therapists and has helped 5 million people worldwide. And you can talk to someone from your couch. No waiting rooms, no awkward scheduling. Therapy gives you the clarity on whether that voice telling you to make a change is your intuition or just the Sunday scaries. But either way, you deserve support. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/mindlove. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mindlove. Let me ask you something. How much time did you spend last week thinking about what to eat? Planning meals, making grocery lists, wandering around the store like a lost tourist. I used to waste entire Sunday afternoons on this, and it was exhausting. Then I found Hungry Root. Hungry Root fills your cart with personalized picks and plans your week of meals, getting smarter with every order. They have over 15,000 recipes to choose from each week, and most are ready in 15 minutes or less. I'm actually headed to Michigan this week, and I had my Hungry Root order delivered there. So I already know that I have meals ready and plenty of snacks for the kids without scrambling to find a grocery store. It's just handled. And what I love most is their smart cart technology. It learns what I actually like and then recommends groceries, recipes, and supplements just for me. So no more buying spinach that rots in my fridge. They screen out over 200 additives and only source high quality ingredients. The time I've gotten back has just been life-changing. So take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/mindlove and use code MINDLOVE. That's hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE, to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE.
Every emotion, everything has an inherent vibration. Every physical thing is actually vibrating really fast. If you believe, sometimes I'm very skeptic on science and stuff, but if you believe in the subatomic, particles and all that, and the way, everything's like vibrating at a very specific frequency, and everything has like a unique frequency, a unique tone. Like if you measure a leaf's vibration and all the little elements of it, all the little vibrations collectively that the whole leaf has in totality, it's going to be different than a kidney bean or some sort of other a broom, whatever. It's good. Everything has its own internal vibration. And humans collectively, I have a sum total vibe, and I think that we as a total people, there are so many of. I think the way that we are made to live kind of puts us in a bad vibe.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
Welcome to the show, Human Vibration. I'm so excited you're here. I've been following you for a while.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I've taken a look at a lot of the things that you do, and it's so beautifully aligns with the things that I love to explore. And I may be a little out there for some of your listeners if they're new to some of these ideas that I might be kicking around. But I really, really appreciate everything that you're doing in the space of inner work and this exploration. I think that's really, really important, and kind of getting, unburdening ourselves with some of the old stuff and old ways of thinking. And ultimately, that's what I'm trying to do as well with a lot of the things that I explore with, this outward seeking. And I think there's just as much deconstruction to do on the inside. Yeah. So thanks for having me.
Unburdening ourselves by what has been.
Unburdened. Yes. She gave some word salads, but there were some needles in that haystack. There's actually some truths. We do need, I do think that we're due for a bit of an unburdening. Yeah, I actually wrote that down. I wrote that down. You had this post and it made me go, it was, who would you be if you truly let go? Who would you be? Who could we be? And I've always had that I've had that inkling. And this is a lot of my explorations is I feel like we're being kind of bombarded with things that do not matter ultimately. That just, let's call it fakery, let's call it foolery, whatever you're going to call it. It's nonsense. It doesn't matter. It's noise. We get that all day, every day. What is that keeping us from? What is that keeping us from? What is that type of, brain baggage keeping us from? Then on the other side, this inner, the emotional baggage that all of us have. We all have these stories. Just as the outward stories are false projections, I argue in many ways, some of the inward stuff is sometimes just as fictional, even though it feels very real. And so it's just as a big aha moment to unburden ourselves from this stuff that we carry around all through life. Anyway, I'm really excited to kind of talk in this way. I feel like this. When I've been doing under the umbrella of human vibration, I've been kind of exploring since 2020, and a lot of the early work was unraveling from unburdening myself from being. I was really, really, really deep into conspiracy theory. That was the deepest, darkest rabbit holes that you can imagine. I was playing down them things. I was sliding down. Loved it. I truly did. I was obsessed with how, in the grotesquerie. It was fascinating to a way that was captivating in my mind. That was truly like a trap. I couldn't get out for years. I was obsessed with getting to the bottom of these conspiracies. Now I see things kind of on another. I'm still very fascinated by these stories and by these conspiracies, but I kind of see it from one layer out. I see it kind of as a trap, and so I'm because I saw how beautifully and how deftly it trapped me for many years, and now I'm kind of one step removed, and I'm looking at the construction of a lot of these things, and that's what I feel like a lot of my work on Realize Radio has been lately. Is we're kind of one step removed from being in the conspiracy, and Realize Radio is a community that I've kind of been building with my co-host Rambo over the past since 2021, and a lot of this is once you get to this kind of the end of the arc of okay, what if some of these stories aren't real? What does that? Okay, what does that do? Okay, so what next? And that what next is the great exploration. I feel what overlaps so wonderfully with what you do. What next is when we are no longer burdened by those mental traps, we actually maintain and retain and reclaim a lot of energy, a lot of very, 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 very precious, I argue, the most precious substance, energetic force within this realm is our focused attention, is our collective focus individually and then collectively. Oh my gosh, so incredibly powerful. And I feel when we have an opportunity to kind of get rid of the baggage, we don't even know. I don't even feel like we've really ever really had the chance to live our fullest lives. So what does it even look like? What does it look like when we are, letting go? Who could we be when we let go of all of these things? And I go kind of wild on Realize Radio. I talk about as much as I love to talk, as much as I love language and exploring words and wordplay and etymology and all that stuff. Do we even need language? Do we even need a verbal in dialect all around the, we have all these languages all around the world. It's the scrambling of tongues. It keeps us divided. It's really, you do feel it's intimidating to be in other countries sometimes. If you don't learn if you don't know the language, you can feel lost at sea. A language can be a big divider as much as a uniter. But do we even need it? Do we need like a vocabulary language to express, or is there some sort of unlocked potential within us if we unburdened ourselves by the letter systems and the spoken word systems and maybe got to something else, like a more, I don't know, something akin to like maybe a tonality system or a telepathy system or something. I think that we're magical creatures in a magical realm. And again, like, who could we be and what could we do? What could we unlock? How do we even begin? But we just haven't been given the chance. And I think now is the chance. I think we finally are at a stage in humanity where we're able to like see around us. We're able to see things in a new way through a new lens. And I think that just awareness of the world around us and recognition, or recognating of the world around us as we take it in, same world, but recognition of how we receive it. That's where this like new magical pathway forward is we have like a new vantage point. We have a new way of taking it all in. Anyway, I could just go on forever on all that stuff.
Sometimes I'll be drinking coffee on the couch in my office, and my husband will look at me and be like, "What are you deep in thought in?" And I don't know how to explain it, so I'm like, "No, nothing." Because I just couldn't explain the loopholes that my mind just sent me through. But somehow your monologue just now is my Tuesday morning coffee musings. But what's fascinating about what you shared is how it touches on questions that I've also explored. So I have noticed that when people follow my podcast long enough, they might catch glimpses that my personal curiosity extends beyond what most people think about. But I went through a really similar journey with conspiracy theories. And at first, it's that hesitation, right? You mention something like chemtrails or fluoride to someone, and they immediately label you as this crazy conspiracy theorist. And so you step back, not wanting to be grouped in with those people. But then something compelling makes you wonder if there's something worth examining. So after 2020, I found myself going pretty deep in some really dark rabbit holes, all while pregnant with my first child, which was quite the emotional combination. Right. I'm like, why am I bringing a child into this world? But over the last few years, I've shifted toward asking different questions. I've started noticing patterns, whether it's quotes or concepts about reality creation, and they would appear at just the right moment. So I used to think that creating your own reality was more about just taking conscious action instead of just operating on autopilot all the time. But during meditation one day, I had this really vivid experience of seeing my life laid out almost like a game. And it connected to those quantum physics concepts about observation affecting reality, ideas that I understood intellectually, but I don't think I had fully integrated. Well, that's when I came across your post about rendering as we go. And it just resonated with exactly what I was exploring. And so I thought it would be so fascinating to have a conversation with someone thinking about these concepts from different angles, from deep conspiracy research to seeing things from one step removed, as you put it. So what shifted in your perspective, and why do you think that shift matters? So what shifted in your perspective, and why do you think that shift matters?
Yeah, it's all of these tangential interweaving. It's this beautiful enmeshment of curiosities and fascinations and explorations of a lifetime that all kind of worked together to become this worldview. I professionally, I work in video production, graphic design, a lot of 3D, a lot of kind of modeling and working in this 3D mesh environment and wireframe mesh, and kind of understanding this, how these projection plane and in a planar existence and in a planar 3D render, viewing 2D, 3D in a 2D space, and just kind of like this whole world that's behind a graphic. Like it's just kind of a world that you don't really see when you're just observing an animated movie or something. You don't really see how it was all done on the opposite side and how all put together. But I was kind of like working in this realm and working in a lot of just interesting graphics creations, and this is kind of long before, many years before, now it's saying 3D and generative and iterative, and we know about DALL-E and text to video and text to these incredible imagery, and it's all very advanced and immediate now, and we're very familiar with it now. But kind of this has been like kind of a long time exploration for me. And then in 2020, kind of at the height of what I would call the height of my conspiracy, it was just like the capital of my conspiracy, the absolute zenith point, that the top of the tops with really the bottom of the bottom, absolutely the deepest of the depravity. I mean, I was so convinced of all of these. I was really deep into Pedogate and Pizzagate, and that might be way too much for even your audience to, that's all. So that's all I'll say. But I was just so into it and wrapping all of these things together. And I was also very fascinated with the JonBenet Ramsey case over kind of a lifetime. This is kind of how I came to be Human Vibration.
Every tabloid where we were getting our info, and we're just standing in line at the grocery store. My mom's like checking out and just grabbing the JonBenet Ramsey.
And she looked like a porcelain doll all my life growing up. And, all the horrible details that People magazine would just like casually throw out back in the day. It was really horrific, this story. I was obsessed with it for a really long time. And then weirdly, all the explorations kind of intermingled, and JonBenet Ramsey was beginning to show up in like Epstein explorations and Ghislaine Maxwell. There was a photograph with JonBenet Ramsey and Ghislaine Maxwell in the background. I'm like, now all these other I've been long fascinated with JonBenet Ramsey, and now I'm fascinated now with this Q stuff and Pedogate and Pizzagate, and now those worlds are colliding. And there was something about, I had kind of stopped looking at stuff, and I've kind of gone really too deep into the JonBenet Ramsey as the dark side, and I'd written this really deep thread about what really happened to her, and it was all about like satanic ritual stuff, and just I can't really describe how just kind of gross really was, but I believed it, and I thought I was getting to the bottom of it, and you can find all this documentation to make it seem like that's the way it was. But in that process, in that exploration, something cracked open in me, and I looked at her kind of with a new, I saw this digital image that I saw this picture of her that I'd seen a bazillion times. This face that had stared at me so many times on the screen, and something about it, it unlocked in my mind that I was not staring at an actual photograph. I was staring at a digitally generated face, and kind of backing up just a little bit, not that long before, I had become very fascinated with GAN technology, this website called thispersondoesnotexist.com, which was this pretty rudimentary site at the time. Like, I think it came online in about 2014. And all it was you just go to thispersondoesnotexist.com, and it's just a face. And then you press refresh, and it's another face. And you press refresh, and it's another face. But none of the faces are actually real. They're all digitally generative adversarial network, GAN, machine learning. Like, it's just been fed a database of faces, and it's amalgamated faces, and it'll spit you out a face. And if you are not familiar with it, you'll just see it and go, oh, that's any old face I would see on Facebook. That's just a normal person's face. And you'd refresh and go, okay, that's another face that's just any other face that I'd see on the internet. Once you comprehend and recognize that these are not real faces, and you just keep reminding yourself that, you will begin to see pretty extraordinary anomalies that were not visible to you at the beginning. Your brain, what this site does is it shows you over the progression of not that long, in a 10-minute session, you can completely rewire your brain. But what the site showed me, and what the site did for me, was kind of unlock this understanding and this visualization, I was now primed to, when I was encountered with a digital face, to be able to recognize it as a digital face. So that was like, I did this like weird training exercise a couple months prior to having this aha moment. But I looked at JonBenet Ramsey, like while I'm so convinced that all this bad things has happened to her, I look at her again, almost like, I mean, it is with fresh eyes. I saw this, I just knew in my bones that she was not real. That this image at least was a digitally generated image, and this exploded my brain, and it invited me to look at the case completely differently, with a totally new lens, with this idea that she wasn't real as the new lens through which to see. And the case began to fall apart like a $3 watch. All the details fell apart. Every avenue I looked in with that mindset and with that lens through which to see, I started to look in the pageants. The pageants that she participated in didn't even exist. All of the pageants that she was supposed to have won, each and every one of those pageants, like they only existed for the years that she was participating in pageants. And then there was never like a previous year winner or a post year winner. Like these particular pageants only existed. So many of the details for this case, so many of the details that I'd been blinded by, been fascinated by, been absolutely pulled into for decades. Oh boy, howdy. And we all still are. It's still unsolved. You know, but there's still Netflix documentaries coming out about her. Anyway, so I started looking into every little avenue of her case. I wrote this new thread, kind of the thread that I'm known for as Human Vibration. I wrote it in January of 2020, and it was just a complete deconstruction of the JonBenet Ramsey case, of her as an entity, and then all of the details of the case, and then looking also into the family, which had been a blinding point of light, and looking into the construction of that and all the elements of that. It was a very interesting view into the media machine as well, because once I was able to see the JonBenet Ramsey case through this, everywhere else I looked was rendered differently, was rendered completely what I now see as clearly. I began to see the Epstein case completely differently. I think he was a fabricated character, a boogeyman, which I think a lot of our nefarious characters are completely fabricated and are not real, exist in name only, in pixels and on paper, and that is it. Do not actually have a lived real life. And there's all these legal mechanisms to operate an entity to make it seem like there is a, you know, and this legal entity can enter into contracts. They can, you know, they could have all this really robust paper trail, just like a shell company. It's essentially a shell person, just as we know that shell companies exist. And, you know, if you look at their books, they have all these legitimate books, and they go here and they go here and they go here. But then if you just follow it, eventually you'll see that there's some sort of null at the center. There's a nothingness. And all this artifice, the shell company artifice, is just to hide that null at the center. And I think essentially Jeffrey Epstein and many characters like him, many individuals on this level of boogeyman and icon, you know, icon, to trick the eye, to con the eye. I think that they are similarly fabricated. They're just characters on the world stage. And that's a wild, for many people, that is a bridge too far. And I get it, but that's, I get it.
No, I actually, I was looking at a picture of Madeleine McCann one day, and I was like,
she's the UK JonBenet. She's the UK JonBenet. Same story, template. That's a template. Like they're both unsolved, quote unquote. Both cases, Madeleine McCann and JonBenet Ramsey. You know, these horrific cases, crimes against these beautiful little girls. You know, lights snuffed out too soon, tragedy to the nth degree. Both of them remain unsolved and are bafflingly so. No, we've never gotten any closer. And I think it's because that's that way by design, unsolvable by design. They're not meant to be solved. They're meant to entrap our attention forever until we, you know, raise the white flag, until we say enough. I'm done with this stuff.
What could we really be if we were trapped in this false projection, or these false ideas of what reality actually is, or what we are actually capable of? I'll tell you, we would be Tartarians.
We'd be pretty damn powerful. We'd be extraordinary, I think. And this whole idea of like, there's a lot of division sewed into the narratives, and I think that I think that if we were really to live in the way that perhaps we were intended to live, not the way we are living, but the way, I think that there's a different way. I don't know what it is. I haven't materialized that fully in my mind, but it doesn't mean I can't feel in my heart that there's got to be a different way to do this thing called life. I think that we truly would, if we could live individually more freely, I think that we would unite collectively more readily. I think that just so much of this modern life really is all about sowing division and distraction and keeping us kind of divided and, too siloed as individuals. And yeah, I don't know. I think we'd be pretty damn powerful. I don't know how it would all work, but
I think about this a lot when I'm explaining perspectives that go deeper than most people are ready for. So there's always this moment of hesitation, just wondering if the person can handle it or how judgy they might be or if they're even open to it. But here's the thing. My life is my own little experiment. I'm always testing ideas and exploring concepts to see what it creates in my life. So I don't even care if people believe what I'm exploring. And to be honest, I might not believe the same thing tomorrow, because if I'm presented with new information, I will open to it. But someone once challenged me with, well, what's the point? What if you're wrong? And I had to laugh, because what if I'm wrong? The worst that happens is I stop getting emotionally invested in people who have nothing to do with me, or world events that likely won't directly affect me, but I am told that I need to care deeply about that right now. So some people might think this approach is unhealthy and because of my privilege. But when something appears on the news, my first instinct is to question it. How am I ever going to truly know if what's being presented is real or how it's being framed? So just recently, someone in my audience lashed out at me for not speaking out enough against something that they felt passionately about. And my initial response was, first of all, I've actually donated in this area, so don't come at me because of your assumptions. But second of all, I'm not a puppet. I don't have a platform so that it's filled with everything you think is important. And third, why do you expect me to share your outrage? And it was interesting because this was somebody that I had sort of friendly digital exchanges with for years. Never met this person. We've kind of seen eye to eye from what it seemed in the last 5 years or so. And then they're suddenly attacking me as if I was the one with the unhealthy mindset. And that's what happens when we buy into this idea that we all must care equally about the same things. And this is complicated to talk about because, yes, there are real problems in the world and things happen all the time that deserve attention. But I have to ask myself, how much is this specific situation going to affect me? Am I going to start identifying with it as part of who I am? Can I even verify what's actually happening beyond what I'm being told? And I can't always know what's true with absolute certainty. And so I choose to focus my energy on what feels resonant and where I can make a tangible difference rather than getting caught in cycles that drain me without creating any positive change. And usually that focus is right in my own household.
Gosh, you hit so many ding, 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 dings, especially with the resonance at the end. At the end of the day, everybody's life would be influenced differently by this exercise. If you pull back your energy, what does that look like to you? That's up to you. Everyone's is going to look different, but at least you have the opportunity. I don't think people even realize how much of their, let's call it RAM, let's call it random access memory, how much of our power in our computer and our brain, it's got, like random access memory in a computer is all those background tasks that are just gobbling up energy. Sometimes when your computer's running slow and you're like, God, why is this program not really working very well? It's because all this RAM is being gobbled up in the background by these kind of like phantom programs running that you're not even aware of. They're not even affecting anything that you're currently doing, but they're just going on the background, sucking the life force from this machine and sucking and making the output, just a downgrade in every way. I feel like that is us. I feel like there is something being gobbled up, some essence of us being gobbled up by the noise and the nonsense, by the division and delusion, by a lot of these narratives that we are told you must, not just you must care. And I think that's why they're called characters, because we care. We need us to care about them, but not we don't just need you to care. There's so much out there that it's like we need you to be downright outraged, and we need you to position yourself kind of against the other half of the population that we have actually made to be on the opposite side. We've actually set this up, so that y'all are on this side and you're very passionate about it, delusionally so, aggressively so, and people are going to be on the other side and the exact opposite, and they're also going to be just as delusionally aggressive about their beliefs on whatever subject, because it doesn't even matter, whatever subject, but politics, religions, is social, any sort of social matter, really everything that we've ever been told to care about is somehow this tool as well of division, deception and division ultimately, and thems and we're over here and just polarization, and ultimately polarization, and reds and the blues, Democrats and Republicans, and opposite, thems and over here and over there, and truly the opposite sides, because that's where power comes from. We know that from just the idea of magnetism. When you get two magnets together and you can feel that field between the magnets, there's actually this force field, this energetic quandary, this essence that we can interact with and experience, but we don't really see how that really quantifies on a larger scale. But this polarization actually creates this energetic pull. And I think that it's our energy ultimately at the end of the day that is constantly being pulled. Our brain, they say we only use 10% of our brains. I argue that the real reason that may be true is because the other 90% are being gobbled up by nonsense. And so they're kind of telling us the truth. They're not saying that, oh, you have 90% to unlock and run free, and that's currently not being used, that you just have to open up one day. That's not what they're saying. They're saying that there's only 10% that's available because the rest is full of bullshit and overtaxed, overused by all this other stuff that doesn't even matter. Gosh, it sounds like such a, and you talked about earlier, you mentioned, what if we're wrong? What if we're wrong? And what if, I do believe that bad things happen in this world. And I think that it happens on a much closer to home level. I think that hurt people and familial hurt and interpersonal hurt. I feel like there's a lot of malice in the world too. A lot of interpersonal stuff, and so I think that sometimes we do experience levels of this stuff in our own lives. And so when we are told that it's happening on a grand scale, it's rooted and it's very believable. And I think sometimes that our sympathies are hijacked in that way. So I'm not saying bad things don't happen. I'm not saying bad things, I'm not, Pollyanna in that way, but I do think on a very large scale, with things that come through the media and a lot of the things that have taxed us as a global public, the biggies. I'm talking about the biggies, the 9/11s et al. I'm talking about I'm talking about the big ones. Those are anchors. Those are deep, deep, deep weights on the system that is trying to lift and trying to rise and trying to progress, or trying to metaphorically get on out of here or something. I don't know. But I think that there are a lot of things that are keeping us down, that are keeping us weighted, intellectual baggage, just as emotional baggage is so weighty for the system. Intellectual baggage, I think, is weighty for the spirit. The whole, all of it goes together.
The thing is, that's so interesting to me, is that people can sit there and they have an open mind enough to, maybe delve into a surface level understanding of quantum physics and how things are a wave until they're observed and then it's a particle. But then when you say something doesn't exist that they've emotionally attached to, it's like this big giant thing. I imagine you get a lot of people that are like, well, I should ask this instead. Do you get a lot of people when you say something like, I think John Benet Ramsey might have been an AI configuration? Do people get mad at you?
Thank you for refreshing my completely ADHD brain, because I did not at all answer the we render as we go. I did not finish that thought earlier, and this is going to finally tie together. I am so undiagnosed. My brain is ping ponging everywhere at every moment. But I do think people are actually more and more. When I first came out with this idea that John Benet Ramsey was not real, I was met with just an absolute, I'd say, a wall of resistance. I had a few people perforate that wall. Shout out to my co-host of Realize Radio, Rambo. He was someone really early on in 2020 that got it, that saw what I was doing. He got it. He was doing parallel things. He was seeing things in his own explorations. We would ping pong off each other. And about a year after this like incredible DM, interchange with a few other, kind of key players on Twitter at that time, that's, we were like, we gotta turn this into something. But he was, he was coming to me with fake faces too. He was coming to me with these CNN interviews at the time, and there was this correspondent on screen. And of course, this is during COVID when there's not, this kind of on-screen interviews that people aren't in person, this kind of Zoom everything, and the quality of the Zoom was always very degraded. And he was sending me, he's like, this is an official, or it was BBC, I'm sorry. He was like, this is an official news broadcast, and this is a correspondent that they just threw to talk about some terror thing, and she's not real, is she? And I watched, and it looked very sim-like. She looked like an avatar, and not even that great of an avatar. I was like, have we tuned our brains too much that we can't really even see reality anymore, and all we see is AI? But we were very worried about that as well, because it seemed to be creeping everywhere. These kind of digital faces, and with John Benet Ramsey too. Over time, I feel like people that have explored the case, that have first encountered my work and then explored the case for themselves, even if they were even if they didn't see it, I don't see it. She looks like a regular girl to me. Or because a lot of people say, well, what about the videos? And I have to, I have to remind people that now we see how easy it is to insert, these identities onto not only imagery, but also video, these deep fakes. We're very aware of this deep fake technology, this identity creation and manipulation over video now. And I argue that this technology has always existed. So it's not about kind of an actual advancement of technology, and this is advanced technology that we're experiencing now. I think that it's kind of this rollout of technology that's always existed, and we are just now being able to play with it and kind of experience and extrapolate what this could mean. But we're always shown kind of rudimentary versions. We're never actually shown what actually exists as far as this type of generative technology is kind of a one-to-one with reality. We've actually, I think, been experiencing it our whole lives, and we've never known what it is, and so we've never thought to question it. We've always just accepted it as reality. That's also kind of an interesting exploration into technology and the idea of history, and that's something that we go into with Realize Radio. But it's in kind of connecting it all back to we render as we go. Like I began seeing this world through this lens of this world began to appear to me as like this rendered projection. I separately, another fascination has kind of been just kind of the basics of philosophy and what does it mean to be, and I am not the first person to tiptoe into territory of questioning the underpinnings of our reality and what it means to be real and to exist, and the idea of simulation theory and the Matrix and the Truman Show, which the Truman Show had a profound effect on me when I saw it as an adolescent, profound effect. But there's a lot of cinema that kind of gets into this idea of kind of like we are living in some sort of world that is simulated, and I and it kind of couples with this idea of manifestation and what could that even mean? And I began to very much feel strongly that we are influencing this place. We as human beings are not just influencing, we are truly creating this experience as we go. We're not just the observers, but we are the creators. And you talked earlier about kind of these individual projections and how does that commingle or harmonize with other people's projections. And I think that that's a good way of seeing it. I think that in some ways I see this as kind of almost like a dream state, like this hyperlucid holographic dream state that is being kind of amorphously but precisely, meaning there's like a fluidity to it, even though that fluidity is very precise, that is kind of creating this world in real time around us and for us, by us. And I think that we have far more power and influence over this place than we've ever been led to believe, because I think that we are actually creating this place. We're not just living in it. And in that, and I think that that's where this idea, a lot of your listeners might be really familiar with synchronicities and how synchronicities appear quite spookily sometimes in our lives. And, you know, we've all had the experience where we learn about a new topic, or we learn about a new word, or we read a new book, or we, you know, listen to a song we haven't heard in ages and ages, or think of a person we haven't thought of in forever, and then boom, it'll just materialize like magic very, 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 very soon after this impetus. And we go, huh, that was weird. That was weird. Wasn't that weird? You know, that was a weird timing on that one. Or back in the day when you used to reach, you know, back in the day when you used to go to call someone with the landlines, and you would reach to pick up the phone, and they would already be they'd already be on the phone, and you'd be like, I didn't.
Somehow it was easier to feel with landlines.
Very connected. I mean, it didn't happen all the time. It was certainly a fluke, but it certainly happened enough to give you the heebie-jeebies when you'd be calling someone. Let me pick up the phone and call so-and-so. And you'd pick up the phone, and instead of hearing a dial tone, you would actually hear them because they called you at the exact same moment, which is, you know, and I like to say, what are the odds? Because that's something you feel like, what are the odds? What are the odds? Well, I think the odds are 100% because we're actually influencing. We did it. It's a done deal. We did it. Signed, sealed, delivered. And I think that these synchronicities are, I hate to say a proof, more of a wink, like that this is for you, this is by you, this is through you, this experience and this little, and you know, it's everywhere, and I do think that we can start to live like this really extraordinarily magical, in tune. Talked about harmony earlier. You know, you kind of like harmonize with the world around you when you begin to appreciate it as a creation of yours, and then you actually take a lot of more ownership over every action, every intention, every action, every step, forward, backwards, or, you know, internal, external, all the, you know, thoughts. Sometimes we can be even when we look like we're having a great day, you know, oh, hey, how are you? You know, on the outside looking like we're bebopping around. Inside, we're actually very, very troubled, and we're ruminating on things that are just like we would never, or we're, you know, beating ourselves up in a way that we would never treat another person, you know. We, you know, kind of, so beginning to like live a harmonious, in tune existence where like the internal and the external, the spiritual, the mind, body, whatever, all mind, body, heart, soul, all of those things, zip it all up. When those start to be in line, and you're not like living, you're not like thinking, you know, there isn't like a, there isn't like a discordance in any of those. I think that things do get a little bit more magical, and I just think, it gives us an opportunity to live our own lives in a way that feels right to us. Some people are going to pour that into a hobby that they've been wanting to explore. Some people are going to start a new business. Some people are just going to be able to be better husbands, sisters, teachers, whatever, because they're not so bogged down. It's just going to look different for everybody once we all have the chance to choose for ourselves where our energy goes.
Yeah, it's like, I feel like 3 pieces of understanding have dramatically changed my life. The first one is that I need to have a vision, because it's just like we were talking about with the synchronicities, or like all of a sudden you're like, oh, maybe I will look at a Tesla, and then you see them everywhere. And it's like people talk about the reticular activating system, and they think because there's a scientific explanation that it makes it less important. Where I'm like, well, that's the explanation of the magic.
Yeah, there's a scientific name for it, but that doesn't. Yeah, I think that's just a capper.
Yeah, and they're like, oh no, it's just science, it's not spiritual. And it's like, don't you think like they're not supposed to be conflicting? The science should explain the spiritual. Like that's how it should work. And it does the deeper that you go. But you need a vision so that you know what you're attracting, and not just in the magical way, but like, okay, no, like get so clear on this that you start to see it. Like my husband, we're at the point now where like it feels like the universe is always proving synchronicity to me. Like I'll go down to the kitchen and like say something to my husband, and then my kid's cartoon will say the exact words, and I'm like, I don't even think I've ever said that word out loud, and now it just said this. Like all of those little synchronicities. And so we're living in this loop of all of the things we've already been exposed to showing up again and again and again. If you want to break out of that, you have to self-expose to all of the magic that you want to bring into your life. So you have to get super clear on that vision and visualize it, and then it'll start to show up for you. That's the first thing. The second thing is you need to unravel your incongruence, just like you were talking about with alignment. If you want to build this giant company and see a vision of changing the world, but you believe that money is evil, or you believe that you're not capable, or your mom's voice of saying, you can't do that, like it keeps coming up in your head, you're going to get in your own way, and you're not going to know why it feels so hard. So you need to bring that to the surface so you can work with it. And then the third thing is you need to stop letting everything else suck your energy. There's infinite distractions, all the things on the news. You can sit here, believe that it's real, but does it serve you or anybody else if you're paying attention to what's happening across our human realm? Do you feel suddenly convicted to do a social post on it? Where is that coming from? Is it coming from expectation? Do you think it's really going to do something? I'm not saying it's never worth it to speak out against something. Sometimes that's how we make big change. But know the difference between what is your personal conviction or just getting swept up in everybody else's energy. I've always said, like, I'm not a picketer. I will probably never hold a sign outside of something. We'll see. I also don't like to say never, because if I feel like I should, I will one day. But I'm really glad other people are doing that. If I'm not feeling pulled, it doesn't mean that I don't have a heart. It means that I might be helping in other ways that I feel like are more aligned with what is possible. Like, can I donate? Can I volunteer? I don't know, just other things. So it's all of those things. And all of that comes back to basically learning how to live from the inside out, how to choose the reality that you want to create and make that more possible, rather than just live in the reality that's being created for you.
I loved it.
And rant.
When you said pay attention, or we have to we choose to pay attention to all of these myriad of things that are bombarding us, and it's a choice, but we do pay. It's an exchange. It's a currency exchange, and they don't call money currency because currency means money. They call money currency because currency means energy, transfer. This transfer of this precious resource. And we're paying attention. It's our energy, which is even measured in joules. A measurement of human heat energy, it's a joule, and that's Joule, but that's also JEW, jewel, like a crown jewel, because I do think that it's very precious what we have, what we give away freely. It's very, very, it's unimaginably precious what we are tricked into letting outflow with no hand on the hose, Many people have no clue. There's times where I wrote down autopilot earlier because I think that a lot of us go into autopilot mode. So I kind of want to maybe circle back to that in many ways that we're not even aware of. But like, I think so many people are in modes where they have no cognition. They have no kind of conscious awareness of how much energy they are expelling, just giving away, just burning into the belly of the beast, into the great, into the great refinery at the bottom. I feel like there's so much being thrown in, and we have it's just, if we had an awareness, if we had a collective awareness, I think society would inherently improve globally just by individuals being rejuvenated, by being not so depleted. It's so psychically, when you're, and I've been in it too, like just even politics and on the most basic, they call it voting because it's like voltage, and they call it election because it's like electron. It's an energetic exercise. All of this stuff is about our energy and our willing consent into an energetic system, into this system that's just pulling from us. And same thing with money. Like, money's not real. I think at the very, very top of it, I don't think money's good or evil. I think it's just a tool and a methodology to measure our time worth and how much we're willing to take for giving away our time and our precious resource of our energy. And a lot of times that equation is unbalanced. And a lot of times, what we do, even if you are getting a lot of money, it's still unbalanced because the way that we spend our time is sucking our souls. And a lot of us know this by the corporate grind. And yeah, you may have a really, really wonderful paycheck, but at what cost, truly, at the end of the day? And maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's a better way in totality where, it's something we talk about on Realize Radio, and shout out to Rambo, to my co-host. Like, he actually was just doing some great Twitter posts about the idea of professions and a lot of jobs. A lot of jobs are just made up, and I'm not saying that this is like a robot's taking over and, the end of, what are we going to do and humanity's over. But I do think that there could be a day in the not too distant future where, again, we are unburdened by a lot of these roles and responsibilities that could very easily be done by AI. And the idea of like, well, how will we make money? Well, I very much think that there could be some sort of like prosperity future where there is like a universal basic income. The real question is, what do we do with our time? We don't know. Some people are not going to do well with a lot of time on their hands and freedom and prosperity and the ability to do whatever they want, because we've never been able to go, well, what do I want to do? What would that even be? Who would I be? Who would you be if you truly let go? Who would you be if you didn't have all the artifice? Who would you be? What would you even do if you were given a chance? If you weren't told what to do, what would we do? And I don't know. I know it sounds like wacky and wackadoo and out there, but right now with all this stuff going on, I think all politics is theater. But there's something really interesting going on with this whole Doge. Just taking a blowtorch to the governmental spending. Okay, net, what are we going to do with that? I think all the money is just zeros and ones floating around. It's not even a tangential thing. But who's to say that someone couldn't just write a check to every American, being like, "Oh yeah, we saved a bunch of money. Here you guys go. It's a bunch of money." Well, who's to say? And then who's to say that the IRS couldn't be abolished? Because that could be something, and then we no longer have to pay taxes, and it's just fine because they find another way to print the money. Like, who's to say? I think that we just expect life to be really, really hard, and we just go, well, that's just how it is. The American dream is just really, really hard, and it sucks.
All of these things where we're just like, this is how it is. What if it's not? What if you can change it? And so it's like, even if you're listening along and you're like, all of this is way too crazy, no idea do I subscribe to that. What happens when you play with that idea? What happens when you just consider that maybe this one thing that was stressing you out isn't real, that maybe we don't have to look at this way. Like just with everything in life, I question everything. You can come at me with something that sounds so out there, and my first instinct is going to play with the idea of that reality, even if I don't believe it at all. It's like, okay, well, what if that's true? What would that mean? What would be the implications of that? How would that be beneficial? Would there be any downsides? And just play with it. And it's like, maybe I'll just take that as my reality for a while, because I know that my worldview is going to affect what I believe is possible for myself, for humanity, for anyone. And so it's like, if I believe that something's not possible, I'm not going to try. So instead, how much can I play with possibility? And you said earlier, this idea of, do we even need language? And it is so interesting because you just mentioned all these ideas of like elections and currency, because all of these come back to the idea of energy, and they do. Same with a spell. All of a sudden, the word spelling has a kind of different meaning. Now we have this concrete way of explaining things, and that has always fascinated me, because one study that I've mentioned for a variety of reasons on this show is the study that shows that people with less education, that have less vocabulary, actually have a shorter range of emotions because they don't have the word for something like melancholy, and they'll default to anger instead. And so that's why a lot of the times in these like areas where people aren't as educated, they like snap to punching somebody in the face rather than having a deep discussion around it. Or then you get to the idea of like, television is telling a vision. It's showing you what to see and what to believe. Or there's so many examples of this. And then considering, like, because I love exploring biblical history, because of my upbringing, it's like I've always been like, let me show you the holes in this. It's like, if Genesis were to be true at all, then they had to have been, which I don't even really believe. I think all of these are different ideas to wrap our heads around because we are moved through story. But if it was, everyone was communicating through telepathy, or you have to believe that a snake slithered up and said like, hey, eat this. You know what I mean? Like,
isn't like the first part of Genesis, like in the beginning there was the word, or
oh yeah, that's actually in John. In the beginning was the word.
and that reminds me of ChatGPT. You know, you just start this to get this extraordinary result. All you have to do is type in a few words. In the beginning there was
and Paramahamsa Yogananda describes word as vibration plus meaning, intelligent vibration plus meaning. That's what word is. That's the beginning of creation. Intelligent vibration plus meaning. And so what you said about not needing language reminds me of when I have a dream and it's so profound and all I want to do is tell somebody about it. But then the moment I start to say words, I realize I'm about to dumb it down. I realize it cannot be explained through words. How much of our reality is unexperienceable because we don't have the words and we don't have the developed inner world enough to just be with the idea.
I love that. We don't have the words. And the words we do have sometimes are woefully inept at describing what we actually are trying to communicate. A good example of this is the word universe. It's hard to, I like to question whether galactic outer space even exists. You know, I question NASA and what are we really doing? Or did we go to the moon, and beyond that, is space even real? Another one is, I love to explore the body as a machine and the humans as advanced computer systems. I think that we are extraordinary machinery. And a couple of my kind of, I would call them my intellectual people I like to parry and joust with. That was one item that was causing some friction, because comparing us to a computer seemed like I was, devaluing human life. And I'm just, in my mind, I'm like, well, that's just because you're thinking of like your computer that's sitting on your desk. We compute. We are computational machines. We do all sorts of computations. We are computers that, so don't limit yourself by the visual that you're familiar with. Let's expand on the word. We do compute. We do all sorts of things. And I think that seeing the human form as like appreciating us as, I think sometimes we're just too precious, that we're blood and bone and sinew, and we're unlike anything, we're those precious things. But I think we're actually like pretty badass animatronics in a way that are plugged in and tapped in. Like we're online machinery. And I think we're kind of like this really advanced multinodal network as well, because like the human body, even the human hand is more advanced than like any crane that you'll see on the street building a skyscraper or you know, like you think that that's technology over there. No. Inside here, what we're doing, this like constant system, this computational system that has wiring and circuitry all through it, that's constantly running on this salt cell battery system called electrolytes that we're taking in, and the whole dance, and we're constantly repairing. You get a cut on your hand, and you're 3D printing new skin. You get pregnant, you 3D print a human inside your body. We are fucking amazing machines. We really, really, really are. And I think sometimes that exploration, just by saying machine and computer, a lot of people thought that I was putting us down, but I'm just, you know, just because it's blood and bone doesn't mean it's not technology, and doesn't mean it's not advanced technology and really badass, incredible, powerful technology. Probably the most advanced technology in all the realm, you know? And
well, it's funny because you say universe is a hard word to wrap your head around, but think of it,
one word.
Universe.
I know, even that
one word. But it's funny because verse is a little bit different than word. It assumes multiple words in harmony, and so that is what our universe is. It's our unified expression, which fully backs up this idea that it's the collective consciousness that's creating this, whether we're doing that from like a singular nihilistic worldview of like, because I've thought about this since I was a kid. What if I'm the only person that exists? Like my awareness is the only person that exists, and I had no idea what an NPC was, but I remember just thinking, all of this could be fake. I remember thinking this when I still lived with my grandma, which was before I turned 5 years old. Like, I just remember thinking,
you Truman Showed before the Truman Show was Truman Show.
Yeah, I would get this sinking feeling that I still get today if I let myself think about it too much, especially if I let myself think about it when I take like one hit too much of marijuana.
That sunken place. Yeah.
I feel like alone in the world. But yeah, it's that unified expression. It's what we're creating here with the universe. But which means that our worldview matters. It means that if we allow everything going around us to deplete our energy and to be singing this really low note our entire lives, we're affecting the harmony of all. And we're responsible for staying in the minor or the major notes.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's so funny. I've actually been arguing this for a while on Realize Radio, that this place, it's not just a stage. All the world's a stage. I'm arguing that it's like a musical theater. It's some sort of musical theater where the tone that we have been delivering, or that is being delivered from the stage, it needs to change. It needs to be altered. It's not, we're not sending out the right message. You know, maybe that's some sort of, together, because there is a collective vibe. I mean, the human vibration, that's my thing. Like individually, we all have like a vibe. I mean, every part of your body, everything vibrates. Every sound, every emotion, everything has an inherent vibration. Every physical thing is actually vibrating really fast. If you believe, sometimes I'm very skeptic on science and stuff, but if you believe in the subatomic, particles and all that, and the way, everything's like vibrating at a very specific frequency, and everything has like a unique frequency, a unique tone. Like if you measure a leaf's vibration and all the little elements of it, all the little vibrations collectively that the whole leaf has in totality, it's going to be different than a kidney bean or some sort of other, a broom, whatever. It's good. Everything has its own internal vibration. And humans collectively, I have a sum total vibe. And I think that we as a total people, there are so many of, I think the way that we are made to live kind of puts us in a bad vibe tone. It's not a good song. It's not a good universe. It's not a good collective vibration that we're putting out. Individually, a lot of people aren't so good. So collectively, it's not going to be so good. And And I think that this type of exploration, what you're doing is so important. And tangentially to, what I'm doing in certain areas, I think it kind of all gets to the same place, is like, let's make ourselves better. Just like they say on the airplane, you got to put on your own little face mask before you can help anybody else. I really do believe that there's a lot of healing to be done on an individual level for a lot of people. We have a lot of relearning to do, a lot of unlearning to do about ourselves, about the world around us. And we have a lot of new scaffolding to build from which to kind of hang a lot of these new ideas and ways of approaching the world. And I think we're overdue. I think we're really long overdue for a fresh start as humans, and we're ready for. I think if again, and if you healed on the inside, that vibration is just gonna be more harmonious with your own self. I talked about being in line, head, heart, and soul. We all know what that feels like, and we all know what that doesn't feel like. And if you can just experience that for yourself, and then this idea, actually, Kara from Let's Be Friends podcast many years ago, she said something to me that I've never forgotten. She said, "World peace begins inside of me. World peace begins inside of me." And that just struck like a bell. It rung so clearly. I do think that if you want to see or experience measurable change in the world around you, and this manifests in many ways, like, oh, I wish people were treating me better, or I wish this, that, and the other. I think that there is something that first needs to be done on the inside for so many of those things that we believe are going to be outside in. I think it's actually going to have to be an inside out thing. And so doing that important work that you've been focused on, and I'm still relatively new to a lot of things that you've explored, but just in reviewing your page and a few of your posts and listening to some of your chats, there is a great harmony in what we do completely separately. It may look totally different, but ultimately it's just trying to
oh, it's very aligned. Yeah, because that's why I've been following you for a long time. My worldview aligns with most of yours. A lot of things. There might be a thing here and there where I was like, I don't know about that, but it's rare for me because, like I said, I'm like, ooh, this is an interesting one. Let me explore that. That sounds fun. Like, I don't get triggered by other people's worldviews.
That's good. I think that's special.
Well, unless I've gone so far past one. Yeah. There's times where I used to be somewhere and now I've so convinced myself out of it that I'm like, oh, you're still there. I'm sorry. But otherwise, the conversation has reminded me of, there's this spiritual guide named Paul Selig, and he came to fame, super fascinating. He channels. And so he's written 9 books at this point, maybe 10, channeling it in front of a live studio. So he was the person who really made me believe in the idea of channeling other things. Before, I'm like, I liked the idea, couldn't tell you that I was fully bought in until I saw him in person and I see him channeling and the profound things that comes out of his mouth, where he speaks differently than he does in real life. And he can come out with a whole book that involves 0 editing, and he does it in front of a live audience. There's no question for me. And I've read all of his books, and I believe it was 3 or 4 in that the guides started talking about one tone. And it's basically the idea that the entire universe resonates from a single divine tone, which embodies the source of which all of creation emanates. And so you're encouraged to align yourselves with that. And when I was first reading it, I didn't fully grok what was meant by it. I was just I was kind of following, not really. And then I read A Course in Miracles, and it talks about thinking with God. And I think it's different ways of saying the same thing, which is what a lot of world ideologies are. It's different ways to say the same thing because different stories are going to resonate with different people. But anyways, it's just the idea of getting yourself opening up outside of your ego and seeing whether you want to look at it as divine or pure or whatever. And then the other thing that my universe keeps sending to me is from all different areas something about the idea of heart purification comes up. And so that's what I've really been diving into lately is heart purification. And when you're bogged down by the news or by your own inner critic or whatever it is, you harden your heart, you close yourself to that, and you can feel it. This is a trick I've used for years in arguments with people. Like when I feel myself like fighting with my husband or something and I feel very, very narrow visioned, I'll like take a deep breath and drop my shoulders and just focus on my heart. And suddenly I see a different way of communicating, or I can see his point of view or whatever it is. And so I've used that in my own way, but now I just keep getting hit with this idea of like, it's heart purification. And so I am still figuring out to the depths of what that means, but it just keeps being sent to me. So I know there's something there, at least in my universe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that our heart isn't just a tool for pumping blood to and fro, as they say, medically, the valves and the vortex and all this, it is a vortex, but I think that it's more, it is very emotional and energetic. And I feel like you can just like, heartache's a real thing. You actually feel your chest seize up. I think that, and anger too, you feel the constriction directly. It's not just in your chest. You can like feel it in your actual heart as an organ. So I think there's a lot more going on than it's just a utility pumping blood. I think there's a lot actually more happening. So the idea of purifying that kind of it's so much more than we're told it is. I think so much in our bodies are, again, back to the extraordinary nature of the machine. And I think that we're not allowed to look at it that way. We're just supposed to go, our bodies just do all these things and we have no consciousness of it. And our hearts just beat and our things just our, lungs just fill and our things just, and we don't think twice. It just is what it is. And we don't have any curiosity about what's going on. But yeah, the idea of purifying this extraordinary, important, like critical element of our systems that affects our emotions and our energies in so many ways. But yeah, how do we do that? So if you find out, let me know. If you find out the best way to purify that heart.
Yeah, I think it comes back to a couple different things. It's kind of like those three things I said before. It's like to figure out your own vision, to really play with the idea, sit there and decide like, what is possible for me? Like, what is this life leading me toward? What have my struggles opened up for me? Why do I think I came here to play this game of Earth School? That, and then like, okay, the next thing is like, that alignment is like, how am I getting in my own way? What beliefs have I inherited about myself or about the world or about what's possible? Like, where am I standing in front of this vision so that I maybe can't get there? And then, and then just doing the right thing. And the right thing might not be what it might not necessarily be like, oh, this is what everyone says you should do. It's about like listening to your own inner guidance. When you get a message, actually do it instead of building evidence for the other outcome. Like, continuously show yourself what's possible, continuously open your heart, connect with other people, give to people. I think there's a lot of clues that are found in scripture that we've just interpreted in this literal way. So we've lost all of its magic. But, like Jesus was asked, how do I get into the kingdom of heaven? And he said, give away all your things and follow me. And people take that of like, just like, oh, I just need to like ask Jesus into my heart. No, I think that it is disidentifying with the ego self and opening yourself up to that one tone, the highest vibration, like this possibility beyond our human skin. And so I don't know, I'm figuring it out, but I think learning to open ourselves to guidance that isn't just getting stuck in our own heads is one of the big steps to it.
I love that. And the idea of that items, get rid of your things. It's not just material. It is a conversation about, do we need all these material things in our world? That is a conversation, but it's also like, get rid of all of those things that you've been holding on to, not physically carrying with you, but like psychically carrying with you.
Yeah. Anyways, I feel like I could talk to you for like 6 days. So
this has been wonderful. I've really, really enjoyed this. I just want to say the other thing that you So I wrote down three things that really came to me when I looked at all of your stuff. The power of focus was one. I think that we talked all around that for sure. The quote of "Who would you be if you truly let go?" We definitely covered that. And the third thing I wrote down was you did this focus on how to reframe your human experiences, and just the idea of reframing I think is so powerful. And I think that is just something that we can it's a tool that can be used in anything that is bothering you, anything that is causing friction in your life. There is a way to come into it and to potentially see it and appreciate it from a different angle and a different way. It just takes a really creative and open-minded, and again, like kind of dropping, I don't know if it all is connected to ego, but dropping something and letting go of some really tightly held things and seeing things from a different way. And perhaps, I mean, we all have, I mean, I remember I used kind of trauma bonding. I had these stories and I would tell people these stories, because they are, I felt, they're shaping me, who I am. But like now I don't see them as burdensome at all. And I don't care to share as much anymore, because it's like, those things actually made me who I am. I'm very grateful for like the whole thing. And we've all got our shit. And then we all got through it, and here we are. And, and it's just like being able to, for something that might have troubled you for so long, there is a way, there is a future to be imagined where that same thing is actually appreciated by you and not a burden to you. And maybe that's, therapy and some, there's a lot of, EMDR things and reframing and, even getting really rewiring the brain around all these things. But I think even more practically of just coming to a different cognition within yourself. There's so much to be reseen.
Well, yeah, because all shit just happens all the time.
It does.
And all we are left with is the meaning that we gave it.
And our reaction, yeah.
When we are reframing things, like, it's kind of like, I like to think, okay, there's a group of people and we're all running from a bunch of lions, and then all of a sudden there's like this wall that I have to scale, and I like get up and it's like slippery and I can't get up, but then I realize, oh, there's just like this little divot right here that my foot fits into, and then all of a sudden I can leap over and all these people are behind me. Am I just going to keep running and be like, well, no, I'm stronger because of that? Or am I going to be like, here's the thing that helped me?
Yeah.
And so to me, it's my responsibility to help people over their walls if I've figured something out. And, maybe somebody's foot's too big and it doesn't fit in that same little divot, but there's some people that are going to have my body structure and leap over just as I did. And so for me, like, yeah, there's tons of my story that I don't tell. And then there's other parts that come out over and over again because it's what connects to people and it helps them guide them through their own walls. Yeah. But, yeah,
so being able to share that not from a place of like great trauma, but of triumph, victory.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Yes. And so anyways, for listeners that are vibing with you, that are interested in opening their mind like I am, where's the best place to find you?
Okay, well, if you're interested in the JonBenet Ramsey thread, begin at the beginning. That's on my Twitter, at Human Vibration on Twitter. It's just my pinned thread, and you can just deep dive into that. If you want to kind of see a different expression, I think Insta is Twitter's kind of tough if you're not really used to that platform. So if you want to explore me in a different way, highly recommend Instagram at Human Vibration _ Insta on that one, and lots of posts there that elaborate on many of the things that I've touched on today, and a lot of things that I have not touched on today. Wet Your Whistle if you're curious for more on there. And then I have an ongoing show with my co-host Rambo. He's Seek the Truth 101 on Twitter. And we have a couple of seasons that are out for free. Real Eyes Radio, available on all platforms. So we recorded those back in 2021, season 1, and then 2022, season 2. And we have been recording on Patreon ongoing ever since. We've got 188 regular episodes and tons of bonus content and a really incredible Realize Radio Discord server that has tons of channels of exploration and lots of activity. And we do monthly group Zoom chats. And so it's a really great way to kind of connect with a global community of explorers, I would say, renderers, co-renderers in this really incredible space. I'm really, really proud of Realize Radio. I had no idea when I started Human Vibration that would be kind of an outcropping, but I think that it started as kind of this podcast, and it's become something just much more impactful, I think, than just a show. And it's kind of it's a community. It really has become like a community, and I love it. I'm very deeply invested in it, and I continue to tend to the crops every single day. I love it. I love it so much. And shout out again to my co-host Rambo. If you want to follow him, he's on Twitter at Seek the Truth 101, and same thing I think on Insta. Rambo, Seek the Truth. You'll find him. You can find him if you look on my pages too.
All the links from this episode will be at mindlove.com/399. And you know, whether or not you connect with everything we explored today with Human Vibration, I hope this conversation got you thinking about your own personal algorithm. Your challenge for this week is to notice where you've been living on autopilot. Pay attention to what triggers your automatic reactions. Maybe it's a news headline that just instantly makes you angry, or a social media post that sends you spiraling into comparison. And just observe how quickly these responses happen without any conscious choice. We all have these algorithm-like patterns running in the background of our minds. They're these invisible frameworks of beliefs that filter our entire experience, yet we rarely question them. Think about it. How much of what you believe about yourself, about what's possible, about how the world works, how much of that did you actually choose? And how much was programmed into you by your family or the media or society? And the thing is, you can't rewrite code you don't know exists. You need to see your algorithm first before you can change it. And that's why just being curious about your own automatic patterns is such a powerful first step. So give it a try and let me know how it goes. You can reach out to me at mindlovemelissa on Instagram. You can find my wonderful sponsors at mindlove.com/sponsors. And if you want to consciously craft your reality a bit, the Morning Mind Love is a great place to start. Wake up inspired with an email that actually directs your focus towards something positive, a way to view yourself or the world that isn't what you would see on the news. You can sign up for that at mindlove.com or text the word morning to 33777. Thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.